Uruguay has won the World Cup twice. Their population? 3.5 million people. That's less than the city of Los Angeles. Croatia, a country most Americans couldn't find on a map in 1998, reached the World Cup final with 4 million people. The entire nation is smaller than Kentucky. In 2022, Morocco eliminated Spain, then Portugal, two of the most historic football nations on earth, back to back. Morocco became the first African team in history to reach a World Cup semifinal. Their budget was a fraction of the teams they beat. Here's the question nobody asks. How does a small country beat a giant? Not once, not by luck, repeatedly, systematically, across different decades and different generations of players. The answer reveals something about football that the big nations spend billions of dollars trying to ignore. Start with the smallest champion in World Cup history. In 1930, Uruguay had a population of 1.75 million people. For context, that's roughly the size of Philadelphia today. And in July of that year, they hosted and won the first FIFA World Cup ever played. That alone would be remarkable. But Uruguay did something no other small nation has ever replicated. They won it again, 20 years later, on the road in someone else's country in front of the largest crowd in football history. The 1950 World Cup final, technically a final round match, not a one-game final, was played at the Maracana Stadium in Rio de Janeiro, Brazil. The official attendance was 173,850. Unofficial estimates place the real number closer to 200,000. Brazil needed only a draw to win the tournament. Uruguay needed to win outright. Uruguay won, 2-1. The goal that sealed it, scored by Alcides Giglia in the 79th minute, silenced a stadium of 200,000 Brazilians so completely that Giglia later said, "Only 3 people have silenced the Maracana: Frank Sinatra, Pope John Paul II, and me." Brazil calls it the Maracanazo. It is still, 75 years later, a national wound. So how did Uruguay do it? Not once, but twice. The answer starts with inclusion. While neighboring South American countries were restricting football to the elite, Uruguay's star player in 1930 was José Andrade, the grandson of a slave, at a time when most of the continent wouldn't have allowed him near a national team. Uruguay built their squad from the full population. Their competitors built theirs from a fraction of it. The second factor is infrastructure that punches above its weight, a meticulous youth football network that organizes children from age 4, and a coaching culture of unusual stability. Their longtime coach, Oscar Tabarez, managed the national team for 12 years across 3 World Cups. The third factor is psychological. As former U.S. international Tab Ramos, who was born in Uruguay, put it, "You almost go through 2 generations of people thinking that Uruguay is the best in the world. It doesn't matter who you play against, we're supposed to win the game." That mentality of winning is likely what makes the players so competitive. A country of 3.5 million people that genuinely believes it will beat anyone. That belief, built on real history, is worth more than a larger squad pool. In 1991, Croatia declared independence from Yugoslavia. The country that emerged had 4 million people, no World Cup history, and a generation of players who had grown up playing for a nation that no longer existed. 7 years later, at their first ever World Cup in France, 1998, Croatia reached the semifinals. They beat Germany 3-0 in the quarterfinals. They lost to the eventual champions France in the semis. Then they beat the Netherlands to finish third in their debut tournament as a nation less than a decade old. The player who defined that run was Davor Šuker, a striker who had scored 34 goals in 67 appearances for Real Madrid. He finished the 1998 tournament with 6 goals and the Golden Boot as top scorer. He also won the Silver Ball as the second-best player of the tournament, behind Ronaldo. Croatia did not lose a single match in which Šuker scored, right up until their semifinal exit against France. Then, Croatia went quiet for nearly 20 years. They qualified for tournaments, but never reproduced that 1998 magic. Until 2018. In Russia, Croatia reached their first ever World Cup final, becoming the second smallest country by population ever to do so. They beat England in the semifinal, coming from behind to win in extra time. They faced France in the final and lost 4-2, but by that point, they had already made history. Croatia holds the record for the most penalty shootouts played and won in World Cup history. 4 played, 4 won. For a small nation in knockout football, that statistic is not random. It reflects a team that has been in impossible situations repeatedly and found a way through. In 2022 World Cup, they reached the semifinals again, finishing third for the second time in their history. 3 World Cups in the last 12 years, 3 deep runs, 1 final. A nation smaller than Kentucky, 3 top 4 finishes. Most of what happened with Morocco in 2022 was described as a miracle. It wasn't. Morocco was the first team to qualify for the World Cup through a dedicated African campaign in 1970. They were the first African or Arab team to reach the knockout stages in 1986. Each of those milestones was a building block, not an accident. What happened in Qatar 2022 was the culmination of decades of quiet progress that the football world simply wasn't paying attention to. Morocco became the first African and first Arab team to advance to a World Cup semifinal. They beat Belgium, ranked second in the world at the time, then Spain, then Portugal. No team scored against them in open play for the entire tournament until France in the semifinal. The squad that did this was built on a specific strategy, recruiting players from the Moroccan diaspora across Europe. Members of Morocco's diaspora feature prominently in their squad, players born and raised in France, Spain, Belgium, and the Netherlands who chose to represent Morocco over the country of their birth. This is the modern small nation formula. You cannot out-resource France or Brazil. But you can identify talent scattered across the world with connections to your country, and you can build a team around a shared identity that is more emotionally powerful than money. At the final whistle of their semifinal loss, the Morocco coach gathered his players in a huddle in the center of the pitch. Then he walked them toward the stands, which had turned blood red with Moroccan jerseys and flags, and the crowd that roared back at them included not just Moroccans, but supporters from across the Arab world and Africa. The entire continent had adopted them. That is not something France or Brazil can buy. Uruguay, Croatia, Morocco. 3 completely different countries, 3 completely different strategies, 1 shared result. They punched further above their weight than the sports economics said was possible. The formula, when you look at all 3, comes down to the same ingredients: a clear identity, stability in coaching and structure, belief built on actual history, and the ability to find talent wherever it lives, not just where it was born. The 2026 World Cup has 48 teams for the first time. More small nations, more underdogs, more chances for a country of 4 million people to silence a stadium of 80,000. Subscribe, because the next episode is about the most brutal way to end a football match ever invented: the penalty shootout. Why some teams win them and most don't.